Hello, Flower Mound United Methodist Church leaders for 2022. It is such a joy and a blessing to serve with you this year. Thank you for saying yes to what is ahead. We know 2022 is going to be filled with God's blessings. I'm sure it might have a few challenges along the way, but we know that we can get through anything because God is faithful and so are you. And so as the senior pastor, I'd like to welcome you and say thanks for watching these videos and being flexible on our retreat to put these together and for taking the time to hopefully watch and reflect over them a little bit. And then my part of this video is I'm going to lead you through the visioning process of what we're going to be asking your ministry area to do. So you've already gone through the process of looking through, hopefully, your packet, and that's that leadership packet that was actually attached to this email. So as you went through that leadership guide, I am hoping that you read through some of that, the mission, vision, and values, and the big dates and the staff contact information, figuring out how to reserve the calendar and communicate your events and check request forms, all of those good things. But I'd also like you to pay some close attention to this section about who we are becoming in 2022. The values statements that we really lived into in 2021 have helped us to recognize that we are always in a process of becoming disciples who are wholly loved and loving wholly. And that means that we experience the holy love of God through belonging to God and understanding that we are beloved children of God. That the Holy Spirit gives us blessings to bless others so that we might share of our brave discipleship for Jesus transforming the world. And that is what it means to love more wholly. And so this image of becoming actually helps us to recognize that in the Wesleyan understanding of sanctifying grace, we are always on a mission of becoming something new. And we find that our belonging, belovedness, blessing, and bravery actually continues to evolve. So I hope you'll take a little time to read through that and listen to some of those questions, some of those discerning questions that we are asking you to go through. And then I'm going to ask you to turn to this ministry area goal planning sheet, because as you have reflected on the values relative to your ministry area, whether that be trustees or finance or children's ministry or youth ministry or whichever area you're serving in, your ministry area chairperson is going to contact you and ask to set up a meeting for your whole group. And what they're going to lead you through is this ministry area goal planning sheet. You'll see there's a lot of questions on here that they are going to lead you through. And so that's the portion of this video that I would like to share with you. So in our vision, we understand that we are in a process of becoming. And in that process of becoming wholly loved and loving wholly, we know that we're going to build something new. Right? Something new is going to come out of that because God is always doing a new thing through us. And so this visioning process is really designed to help you in your ministry area discern what that is. Those pivotal points to be able to do that are knowing that you are faithful to those 5 pillars of leadership that we know you've already committed to, and asking those reflective questions. So on those, after you filled out page 7 of the leadership guide for your individual commitment and then read through our mission, your chairperson will contact you to discuss your group reflections and collaborate that vision. That's going to be those questions on page 4 and 5 that I just showed you. And then they will ask this sentence. In our ministry area, we want to create a church where all are wholly loved and loving wholly so that, right? And you might want to say a multitude of different things in your reflection. But I want to ask you before you say anything to think about these values. All creation belongs to God. Each person is a beloved child of God. The Holy Spirit gives us blessings to bless others, and our brave discipleship for Jesus transforms the world. And in your ministry area, think about building a church home, right? What does it mean for God to be our home? And for us to provide a place as a community of faith where every person feels that belonging and belovedness, where every person knows they are a blessing, so they might share bravely of their discipleship with the world. Take the time to ask the reflective questions, because my belief is it changes your so what. For instance, in our ministry area of finance, typically we want to pay the bills, right? That's a great goal. We want to do that. But if we say, in our ministry area of finance, we want to build a church home where all are holy, loved, and loving holy, so that each person knows their donations are a blessing shared for God's work, and the stories we share of impact, well, that changes how we do ministry. Or so that changes the ways in which we live out these values. In our ministry area with children and their families, obviously, of course, we want to have more families come to Sunday school, but if that becomes our sole vision of what a church home looks like, well, then we're just basing things on metrics and numbers. And the Holy Spirit needs us to do more than that. So perhaps we want to envision what it means to build a church home where all are holy, loved, and loving holy, so that children and their families know they're beloved to God by the care we show for them individually. Do you see how that changes the vision when we live into those values? Similarly, in our ministry area of missions, we want to build a church home where all are holy, loved, and loving holy, so that we can do more. Well, of course we want to do more, but is that the best decision right now, right? Is it more important perhaps to cultivate bravery in relationships of transformation through our outreach? I'd like to ask your ministry area to really think deeply about your so that. And then in your imagining your so that, imagine clearly what that looks like. What does it look like? What does it feel like in your interactions? How does that change conversations? What does it even smell like maybe in the kitchen? How does that change what people say about our church or its impact? How does it even change maybe what you tell people about why you want them to be here? Having a very clear vision through this imagining process will really help us in terms of building this church home where all are holy, loved, and loving holy. So once you have a very clear picture and you're imagining, start to build your model. Now, of course, there are different ministry areas. Finance ministry area might look quite a bit different than children's ministry area. So you might want to build a physical model. You might want to do something more along the lines of SMART goals. However your team wants to do that is completely fine. But we're going to come back together as a group and share what these look like. But before we do that, I want to ask you to include 3 things in your vision, and there's a very specific reason for this. I'm going to ask your vision to include offering fellowship and relationship building for easy accessibility for new people. And the reason I'd like to ask you to consider that in your vision is this. We have a lot of people who are guests at our Sunday morning worship services, and we're getting 2 to 3 families every week who are new. And so the opportunities that they have to connect, whether that is through intentional invitation or just things that are easy and relationship building and visitor friendly, is super important right now, so that we can ensure they experience that belonging to God and to this community of faith. The second thing I'd like to ask you to do is doing less of what's been done to make room for new creative possibilities. We know that COVID has been hard on our church, whether that is through we're struggling to get volunteers, people are feeling tired or burned out, or simply that folks are just not comfortable coming back to worship yet. That's okay, but if we keep doing the same things we've always been doing and keep spending our energy on that, there's going to be less energy to make room for new creative possibilities. So it's okay to sunset some things that just aren't working anymore, and to really ask those reflective questions of, what is the Holy Spirit doing, and what is bearing fruit and what isn't bearing fruit, and let go of the things that aren't bearing fruit anymore. The third thing I'd like you to consider in your ministry area is intentional outreach and invitation, specifically to those that we call nuns, duns, and disconnected. This relates a little bit to what Dean was sharing about folks who are claiming they have no religious affiliation anymore, folks who are saying they are done with organized religion, either because they've been burned by it or burned by the theology, and those who are disconnected, those who have just simply dropped out in COVID for one reason or the other. But the more we are intentional in that outreach and invitation to those populations, the more our church will grow into becoming a place where everybody knows they can belong to God and are beloved by God. Each one of these may not relate specifically to your ministry area, but my guess is one of them will. And so I'd like to ask you to really ask those hard reflective questions of where the Holy Spirit is bearing fruit to be able to offer that discernment in your vision. I know that God is going to build some amazing things through us all as we lean deeply into these values of what it means to be wholly loved and loving wholly. Pandemic life has changed us. But I also believe that God has given us everything that we need in you, in your leadership, in us coming together, and that the Spirit is one who is uniting us through it all. And so I pray blessings upon your time of questioning and discernment and visioning and building together. And I can't wait for us to come together at the end of February and see what it is that you are visioning for 2022. In the meantime, blessings on you and yours.